Welcome to the Cinema Gold Show. I am your host, Larry Leese. Today we're diving into Psych and the top 10 best episodes of this series. Yes, I know I said that we were done with Psych, but unfortunately I forgot to actually discuss my 10 best episodes. So before we get into this best episodes of Psych, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Poddex, for sponsoring this episode. You can check them out today at poddex.com and use the promo code Larry21 for 10% off your order. So let's dive right in, shall we? Psych ended 3 years ago, but its witty crime solving remains as delightful as ever. Shawn Spencer, played by James Roday Rodriguez, may be lying about having actual psychic powers, but thanks to endless pop culture knowledge, unstoppable charm, and his trusty friend Gus, he's still able to solve the wackiest murders in Santa Barbara, a.k.a. the murder capital of the country. After watching Psych, This Is Gus, we've rounded up 10 of our favorite episodes that are always worth revisiting. Number 10, and down the stretch comes Murder, from Season 2, Episode 5. Season 2 was Psych at its best, where later seasons relied on pop culture homages or serious character development to keep juices flowing. Early episodes like this could pop off from the simplest ideas. Solving a murder at a racetrack brings Shawn and Gus face to face with a childhood bully, requiring them to figure out an unsolved mystery from their childhood. At the same time, they're untangling delightful racing drama. Also, Shawn gets ample chances to roast his dad for wearing a too colorful shirt at the track. Wow, Dad, tell me you're wearing that shirt because someone has to spot you from space. Number 9, The Greatest Adventure in the History of Basic Cable, Season 3, Episode 4. Shawn and Gus and the search for buried treasure are a match made in heaven. Well, what's Santa Barbara's version of heaven? Red Robin? When Shawn's adventuresome Uncle Jack returns to town to ask for his help in finding a pirate's gold, the guys are pulled into a high-stakes scavenger hunt. They're interrogated, tied up in a cabin, and nearly killed, and Gus loses a puma. It's a rollicking hour that helps explain where our fake psychic inherited his rebellious streak. And when the experience winds up poking holes in his hero worship of his uncle, Shawn gets the last word as only he can. And number 8, Last Night Gus, Season 6, Episode 2. This is probably actually one of my favorite episodes, but it wasn't at least in the top 5. In this hilarious spoof of The Hangover, Shawn, Gus, Lassiter, and Woody wake up after a night of partying with no memory of what happened the night before because someone spiked their drinks. Did they kill someone? Definitely maybe. The boys, because let's be real, that's what they are, race against the clock to figure out what happened and hopefully prove they aren't murderers. Shawn and Gus are funny messes when they solve crimes sober. So needless to say, watching them investigate a case hopelessly hungover is even funnier. Shawn's frustrated monologue about his super memory failing him kills me every time I watch this episode. I'm not having any psychic visions, flashbacks, or recreation flashbacks with new psychic visions. Imagine you weren't just a bland, gangly, average human, that you could wink at someone and light up their world, that you could make a child think you have given them an ice cream cone without giving them the cone, and then watch them skip off into a beautiful meadow licking nothing but air. Number 7, Extradition, British Columbia, Season 4, Episode 1. Who could not love this episode? Like, seriously, it was tough not to put it in the top 5, even in the top 2. There's no such thing as the perfect crime, but there may be such a thing as the perfect foil for Shawn Spencer. International art thief Pierre, like Shawn likes to say, Pierre Despereau. Carrie L's obviously having a ball. So irresistibly charming, it's hard to root against him, and he's clever enough to keep the guys on their toes. When Shawn and Gus spot the criminal on a ski trip in British Columbia, it kicks off a cat and mouse game that spans multiple episodes. All delightful, but we've given the edge to Despereau's debut for the sheer Canadian fun of it all. Psych, which was set in California but filmed in Vancouver, finally got to put on a coat. And number 6, Here's Lassie, Season 6, Episode 11. As you will see, there are several extended homages on this list. Psych was adept not only at constantly dropping pop culture references in its dialogue, but also making those references real with episode-length tributes. Best of all, the show never let such homages get in the way of its own storytelling. This episode, for instance, makes several visual references to The Shining after Lassie moves into a possibly haunted condo, but also tells its own story using eccentric neighbors without relying too much on what exactly happened at the Overlook Hotel. Number 5, Scary Sherry, Bianca's Toast, Season 1, Episode 15. An ambitious send-up of sorority slasher films, the Season 1 finale was the series' first great episode and made it clear this show wasn't going to be your typical Case of the Week series. Directed by John Landis from Thriller and co-written by Roday and Franks, Scary Sherry is the first time we see many of the show's recurring bits. Shawn and Gus running away screaming from a crime scene, people confusing Gus for Bud on The Cosby Show, and Juliet getting lost in her undercover role. Number 4, Dual Spires. In an interview with EW, Steve Franks said he wanted every episode to be wish fulfillment for the writer. It's because of that rule that we got this moody and slavishly detailed homage to Twin Peaks. Co-written by Roday, who is a Twin Peaks superfan, while the hour is filled with too many Lynchian references to count and guest appearances from the Twin Peaks cast, you can still enjoy the episode if you aren't familiar with the 90s series. As the show would prove time and time again, there's nothing better than simply watching the writers and cast have fun with the things they love. And before we get into our top 3, we'd like also to remind you of our sponsor, Poddex. Visit poddex.com and use the promo code Larry21 for 10% off. And also, if you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/cinemagold. Your support will help our show grow. So, at number 3, 100 Clues, Season 7, Episode 5. In a way, wasn't Psych always doing a Clue homage? For its 100th episode, the show went all in on an 80s cult classic that already shares its sense of humor, from its love of wordplay and loud screaming, to that one guy who just can't help but run around a mansion while solving a murder. 100 Clues brings together 3 Clue alums, Leslie Ann Warren, Martin Mull, and Christopher Lloyd, for a dark, posh affair that riffs on the original movie. From its score to its multiple endings without just remaking it, we bring a +1, +1, +2, +1 to this party any day. Number 2, An Evening with Mr. Yang. Mr. Yin presents Yang 3 2D, Season 3, 4, and 5 finales. I really love this story arc, honestly. It really kind of drew something out of all the main characters. Like, you could see Shawn being a more serious and personally emotional when he was acting within this story. You could see Gus being more sensitive to Shawn in this issue, and then you saw the emotional toll that it took on Juliet and Lassiter and kind of everybody involved in this hunt for the serial killer. But yes, number 2 is the mix of the Season 3, 4, and 5 finales. Moving on, Psych was so delightful, mostly because of its low stakes. Shawn and Gus, with witty repertoire, was never offset by more than 1 or 2 deaths to people per episode. 3 different times over the course of several seasons, things got real. Shawn got actual arch enemies, and they threatened the people closest to him. Because Psych saved such stakes for when it mattered, these episodes felt huge. A particular highlight was the second act, an ode to Hitchcock films that had a lasting impact on Shawn and Jules. But all 3 together tell the full saga. And I'm sure if you're a diehard Psych fan, I'm pretty sure you know exactly what number 1 is going to be. But before we get to reveal number 1, let us know in the comments section below What do you think was the best episode? My list is not the right list. It's not the best list. It's my opinion. Let us know. Is there one episode we missed? Do you disagree with our list? With that being said, number 1, American Duos. I had a lot of fun with this episode. The second season premiere remains the best example of everything that made fans go, well, Psycho. Written by Roday and Franks and directed by Landis, this American Idol spoof sees Shawn and Gus go undercover at a singing competition in order to protect a Simon Cowell-esque judge, Nigel St. Nigel, played by the great Tim Curry. Basically, it has everything that makes a great episode: sharp pop culture commentary, ridiculous hijinks, like Juliet going into hard-ass choreographer mode in order to teach the guys how to dance, and of course, music. Of course, the absurd Tears for Fears Michael Jackson showstopper that concludes the episode is pure gold, and more than confirmed that this series refused to be tamed. And now we're going to look at 10 moments that prove Shawn and Gus are friendship goals. The friendship between Shawn Spencer and Burton Guster in Psych is one of the best in TV history. We look at 8 moments that prove why. Number 8, when Shawn was willing to risk everything to save Gus from a bank robbery. Nowadays, it's become relatively commonplace to refer to your best friends and significant others as your ride or dies. Long before that term was popular, Shawn and Gus were going above and beyond in proving their loyalty to one another, no matter the stakes that were involved. In the 3rd season episode, Gus walks into a bank. Gus winds up being stuck in a bank during an attempted robbery after going to deposit some of their Psych money. As soon as Shawn learns that there's a robbery going on, he attempts to storm the bank and winds up being physically restrained by Lastard and Juliet, showing that he's willing to risk everything for his best friend. Number 7, the entire opening sequence of Office Space. In the 7th season episode Office Space, Gus makes the mistake of tampering with a crime scene in quite dramatic fashion. After his boss is murdered with a note from Gus stuck in his hand, Gus runs to Shawn in a panic after trying to clean up the mess he made, and as a result of Gus's hyper-emotional, panicked state, Shawn goes down to the scene of the crime with Gus. What follows is a true comedy of errors as the two men wind up compromising the crime scene in impossible and implausible ways, one after the other. And all throughout, the men are screaming, flailing, frantic mess of nerves, and hilarious physical comedy. Number 6, every Gus, don't be a and whisper fight. More than most other procedural series or dramedy series, Psych is richly filled with reoccurring jokes and gags. Far beyond the typical catchphrases associated with investigators or hammy sitcoms. Almost all of these running jokes are innately linked with Shawn and Gus's friendship. And each and every time the duo engages in these jokes, hilarity ensues. Whether it involves Shawn telling Gus to not be a gooey chocolate chip cookie, or exactly half of an 11-pound Black Forest ham, or the only black lead on a major cable network, or whether it involves the two of them engaging in high-paced whisper arguments. Shawn and Gus's use of these inside jokes is one of the highlights of the series. Shawn telling Gus he'll always be there for him. Number 5. We've already touched on the fact that Shawn and Gus are there for each other through the thick and thin, no matter what obstacles come their way. They're the true definition of friendship, and more than that, a picture-perfect example of what it means to be best friends. But the series' penultimate episode, A Nightmare on State Street, offers a touching coda to their friendship that beautifully highlights their commitment to each other. After suffering a nightmare, Gus tearfully calls Shawn in the middle of the night. In mere minutes, Shawn is there with milkshakes, and the two of them curl up on the couch to watch old movies. While Shawn promises Gus, "It's okay, buddy, I'll always be here for you." Number 4, Shawn's photo that he keeps on his desk. Throughout the series, Shawn and Gus are consistently shown to be much closer than other friendships between men on television usually are. A fun tongue-in-cheek moment about their closeness and the way it challenges gendered relationships occur in the 4th season episode, The devil's in the details in the upstairs bedroom. While looking at photos online, Shawn wonders, why does every girl post a million photos of her posing cheek to cheek with her best friends? It's so lame. That's when Gus points out that Shawn has a picture of the two of them in the exact same position right on his desk, to which Shawn counters that the photo isn't online. At least not yet. Number 3, Shawn's speech at their high school reunion. High school isn't always the easiest time for people, especially when they're awkward teens like Shawn and Gus once were. But in the high school reunion episode, Murder? Anyone? Bueller? Shawn gives a speech that perfectly highlights what makes Gus such a good best friend. A speech so moving it leads Shawn's own parents to have tears in their eyes. The closing lines of the speech say it all. Bert Guster has been my best friend since we were 5. And maybe, just maybe, if any of you can look yourselves in the mirror and know you've been half as good a friend to someone else as Gus has been to me, well, you too can be considered great. Give it up for my best friend, Bert Guster. Number 2, friendship for the ages. Shawn isn't the only one who can give a good speech. In the series finale, The Breakup, Shawn and Gus are confronted with major changes in their personal and professional lives. After Shawn decides to move to San Francisco, Gus realizes he's dissatisfied with his own life, alone from Shawn, and impulsively does the same too. As Gus explains it, Shawn, I was lying. I was so lying. I looked at all those faces and then I realized I have the same job. Yes, I have a better office, a hotter secretary, a soda machine, but it's the same job. And I cannot be that man, Shawn. I'm an adventurer now with a friendship for the ages. And if I have to live in another city to make that happen, then so be it. And finally, number 1, when Gus told Shawn he wouldn't change a thing. But the series finale isn't the first time Gus gives a moving speech highlighting the significance of his friendship with Shawn. In the 5th season finale, Yang 3 and 2D, Shawn and Gus find themselves held hostage by a serial killer. It's there where Gus finally tells Shawn the true extent of what he feels about their friendship. I don't blame you, Shawn. I want you to know that if I had a chance to do it all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. You're my best friend, and we got a chance to live out our childhood dreams. I don't blame you, okay? And I'm sorry if I couldn't always cut loose the way you wanted me to. And that is the end of our episode of the Cinema Gold Show. Thank you for watching and listening. Let us know your thoughts on Psych. What were your favorite moments? What were your favorite characters? Your favorite episodes? Let us know in the comment section below. And if you want to support the show, you can buy us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/cinemagold. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you next time.